Welcome, everybody, to Their Story with your host, Paul Butler. And today's guest is Jermichael Mitchell. If you don't know who Jermichael Mitchell, I'm going to say it again. Where have you been? This gentleman is amazing. So let me tell you a little bit about Jermichael before I introduce him. I call him a community role model, community activist, super basketball coach. He's been named Coach of the Year in several conferences. He's won conference championships. He does AAU. He's won many tournaments doing that. Also has an extraordinary league of gentlemen. He's been a mayoral candidate. Also just a huge basketball coach and role model in our area. And just an entrepreneur, also a poet, if you didn't know it. He's just an amazing gentleman. Sir Jermichael, welcome to Their Story. Appreciate you giving me some minutes of your time.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Butler, man. I'm glad to be here with you today.
Hey, man, it is super excited to have you. So first of all, I told a little bit about yourself, but let's tell people a little bit about Jermichael Mitchell. What is your story?
Yeah, so 40-year-old guy from Salisbury, born and raised here in Salisbury. Went through the Wycomico County school system, from Head Start to Chipman, North Salisbury, Y Middle, then ended off at Y High. My claim to fame, I would say, that got me spiraled into basketball is winning a 2002 state championship title with Butch Waller, his only state championship title as of right now.
You had to rub that in, didn't you?
Well, I was on that team. He's had many great teams, though. I'll say that and throw that out there as well.
There's a great team right there. We didn't win the state title, but we got close.
Nah, for sure, man. So I was able to be a part of that. And then it just ushered me into coaching, man. One of those things I loved. I had a passion for the game, a knowledge from the game, playing with the likes of Bubby Brown and Craig Winder, man, guys like that. So I was able to start coaching for Walt Stevenson, and I was also in Tri-County All-Stars at the time. And I also was able to coach for Bruce Morton and Tom Van Lanahan for Kappa League. And Paul Jefferson at the time was actively involved as well. So I was able to coach for those brothers in the Kappa League, man. And it's been no looking back. I've been coaching since I was 17.
And you've been doing an amazing job, as I mentioned before, Coach of the Year in several conferences, and just doing an amazing job now at the Salisbury School. And let's talk a little bit about, you inspiring so many youth. I mean, you like I said, you're around youth all year round, whether it's at the school level or at the AAU level or at the Kappa League. What is it that got you to want to be this type of role model? What inspires you?
Typical male African-American story, man. I come from a single mother. Father wasn't really actively involved in my life. So I would say I kind of grew up and became what I needed, right? I needed a guy like me. If I feel like if I had someone, and again, I wouldn't change it for anything because I am who I am today. But I believe I could have went a lot further if I had somebody like me in my life at the time, pushing me or making me strive or making me believe or inspiring me. So that's just the goal today, man, letting these kids know that it's bigger than just Salisbury, right? Like, even though I put a lot of work in Salisbury, we take kids on trips, we take kids on college tours. We do our best to try to make sure the kids are cultured. That doesn't always mean African-American culture as well. That means different cultures so that they can truly understand, man. And that was just an experience at times that I got. I can't lie. We were able to go to museums. We were able to go to other seminars. We were able to get around other people through basketball coaches, through different men, through the churches and different things of that in the community at the time. And there was always good men. I think another organization I would say was around when I was a kid, Mr. Ed Taylor and them had 100 Good Men. I know that's kind of aging myself a little bit, but that was a great organization to look up to positive people who look like you in your community. So that was another thing, man. I always respected my elders, looked up to my elders. And then I felt like when it was time to pass on that torch, I wanted to be ready. That makes sense. Yeah.
So that's great. That's great. And one of the things you said was exposing them to things outside of Salisbury. I know one of the things that, my dad and mom did was, they took us all over the place, across the bridge, New York City to the Bahamas, different places. So we could see that the world is bigger than just the Eastern Shore and bigger than Salisbury, so that they could know that, look, there are other things I can aspire to be. I don't have to be stuck here in Salisbury if I don't want to be. And
Yeah, for sure.
that's great that what you're doing is taking kids, to see other parts of the United States, taking them on college tours and trips like that, and exposing them to other cultures. I think that's really, really important. So let's talk a little bit about your basketball lineage. Of course, I know it.
Yeah,
I Clyde Mitchell. He was my coach when I was at
yeah.
the Salvation Army. Kevin
Right.
Mitchell. I played with him. In fact, I think Kevin is in this picture right
Yeah,
here.
he is. He's in that
Um,
picture.
and yeah, he's got the big fro like all of us back then. But you know, eh, tell me who are the because we all have mentors
Yeah.
that inspire us or that get us going. Can you talk about several mentors that you had that maybe inspired you to do what you're doing today?
Yeah, coaching wise, I would say some of my mentors are local Bayside coaches that have been around for a while. I occasionally talk to Doug King. He's been a great assistant at High. Occasionally have conversation with BJ Johnson down Decatur. Derek Fuchs, Pocomoke. These are some of the guys who I pick their brains when I'm around them. We have basketball conversation. But I would say one of my greatest mentors, believe it or not, is my brother Bubby Brown.
Okay.
We always bouncing things off each other. He's always sending me some clips about practice things or different zones or different way to run things. Um, and then I'm always sending him those things as well. I truly believe iron sharpens iron. So if I had to truly pick someone who's a basketball mentor, it would definitely be a great basketball mind with Bubby Brown, man, over at Bennett
Mm-hmm.
High School. He always keeps me on point. I can always call him and check some things out or make sure I'm not tripping it from the way I'm viewing it or seeing things.
Right.
Um, but my legacy again is my Uncle Clyde. My Uncle Clyde did a lot of great work here in this community for years at the Salvation Army and in other leagues, from softball for girls, from baseball, boys, girls basketball, boys basketball. I think he would truly be our bloodline legacy when it comes to coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Even my Uncle Kevin will tell you that. Him and I coach side by side right now, and that's an honor as well. But our Uncle Clyde, man, would be the epitome of what we feel. And then I would hear him always talk about Mr. Billy Jackson.
Yeah.
That was a deep conversation in his room of a man that he looked at as a mentor, a man he looked at as a father figure and someone who gave him a lot of coaching information. So I would say, my lineage would be Clyde Jackson, man, but
Mm-hmm.
he really looked up to Mr. Clyde Mitchell, but he really looked up to Mr. Billy Jackson for a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Jackson was influential in my life as well. I got a chance to play for him, not in basketball or football or anything, but on his track club that he's had
Yes,
in the
yes, yes.
summertime. I used to
For
run on
sure.
that. So I know what you mean. So let's talk a little bit about some of your struggles because we've heard about your successes, but you
Yeah,
know, anybody who's successful has gone through some struggles, has
yeah, for
gone
sure.
through obstacles.
Sure.
What are maybe a few that you can remember that you weren't sure you were going to get through it, but then you finally did?
Yeah, I would say, the trauma in our community at times is death, right?
Mm,
Like, I've lost a lot of close friends to the streets
right.
with murder situations. I've lost my nephew. I think that would be my toughest situation. About 5 years ago, I lost my nephew, and it was one of the toughest situations for me, Mr. Butler, because every time death happens, depression happens, right? It's a
Mm,
traumatic experience. You could even say we go through a little PTSD when death happens in our family and our community, especially with me being so tapped in with the community.
right.
Um, but it's one of those things. When I lost my nephew, man, I spiraled out of control a little bit because I felt like I'm out here every day trying to save my community, trying to save the kids. But what if I took a little bit of extra time? And again, he passed away playing. It was an accident. It was playing outside. Um, so I couldn't really get too down on myself because he was doing what he loved to do. But at the same time, I felt like, well, if he was with me that day, so many things
Mm,
ran through my head. Um, and I can't lie, man, I actually quit coaching that year. So I took a year off. And a lot of people didn't understand it. But it was hard for me to be around kids.
yeah.
It was one of those years, man. It was just every time I was around kids, I was thinking about my nephew. Every time it was something going on, I'm thinking about my nephew. So I quit community coaching at that time. I still coached high school, but I quit community coaching. But I gotta say, man, a lot of prayers with my family, having a great spiritual foundation, talking to people, and then I think it's cliche, especially in the African American community, um, therapy.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of times we as
Hmm.
men don't want to talk about therapy. We don't want to seem crazy or feel like we got problems or issues. But in today's society, in 2024, um, all of us have experienced some sort of trauma where we need to seek some sort of mental health counseling or some therapy.
Right. Right.
And therapy looks different for everybody, right? Like that was one of the things my therapist taught me. Um, it didn't take a lot of sessions for them to convince me to do other things. And poetry was already one of my loves. So I kind of picked up my pen and poured my heart into a lot of poems at that time, and listened to a lot of music at that time. And that got me out, man. I love hard. I have a big heart for my community. And it's like when we have 10-year-olds being murdered and we have 14-year-olds killing 14-year-olds and we have the dramas of the east side and the west side beefs and all of these different things that are really affecting our communities and our school
Hmm.
system. It hurts me, Mr. Butler. I
Hmm.
hurt for these kids because I know that they are good kids that sometimes fall victim to their environment, right? I was one of those kids. I just never got caught. I was one of those kids. I just never got in trouble. It seemed that I could run a little faster at times, or I just
Right.
was slick enough to get away, right? But I was
Hmm.
one of those kids. So I feel empathetic to them, because at the end of the day, if they had the right environment, if they had the right pushes, if they had someone in their lives who could pour into them, then maybe they could see out of the hopelessness, right?
Hmm.
And that's the biggest piece for me. So that's been my biggest struggle, man, is
Right.
um, depression when it comes to death in my community, and then having this big heart because I feel for everybody. And it's one of those things we know everybody won't be saved, Mr. Butler.
Yeah.
That's something that I really, really had a hard pill to swallow for me, because I was adamant when I first started this work about 20 plus years ago that I was going to save every kid,
Hmm.
but every kid isn't always ready for your help right then and there.
Right.
So I try to keep
Right.
an open door policy and say, hey, man, when you're ready, Mr. Mitchell's still going to be around. When you're ready, I'm still going to try to have some resources and some information to help you change your life. So
And
yeah,
we,
I would say those.
yeah, and we saw how big a heart you have in the community as you ran for mayor last
Yeah,
year. It didn't work out, but that's okay. We know that
yeah,
you were out there pushing for your community, and one of the things I want to talk about is, we can't save every kid, but what can the community do from
yeah.
your perspective to help more and more kids out there? What can we do?
Uh, mentoring.
Mm.
I can't say it enough, Mr. Butler. My gurus have taught me from photography. I have a mentor for that. I have a poetry mentor. Everything that I do in my life that I wanted to do, um, I had a mentor. I found a coach or
Yeah.
a life coach or someone to
Mhm.
help me be successful in that lane. Elder told me when I was younger, if you want to be better than what you are, get around people who are doing more than you are
Yeah.
doing. And I truly believe in that. Like if you get around a bunch of people that ain't doing nothing, guess what you're gonna do? Nothing. You got to get around some people who you're not envious of, you're not jealous of, that inspire you. All of
Right.
my friends inspire me. I'm not envious of any of their lives. All of my teachers inspire me. And then I think the other biggest piece would be that our community has to understand trauma.
Hmm.
We have to understand implicit biases, right? Because sometimes everything isn't always racism. Sometimes people just don't know.
Right.
Sometimes it's cultural conflict and cultural differences. Um, so it can seem a little racist, but we throw that title on so many things, Mr. Butler, in today's society. But
Hmm.
when at the end of the day, if you would just sit down and have a genuine conversation with people,
Yeah.
right? That was one thing I learned during this election. And the election, by the way, was the greatest experience of my life. One of my top five. Winning the state title was one of them, but the election was one of the greatest learning experiences of my life. And I would hands down, it was a loss as far as us not getting the seat, but
Hmm.
it was a win as far as life experience.
Right.
I learned so much, man. I shook so many hands, and I was one of those across the aisle guys. Um, I learned a lot from Republicans during that campaign. They caught from phone calls to things of that nature. Um, we as people have to truly understand that conversation can save us. love and empathy can save us. And the moment that we truly have a conflict or we don't agree, we have to cordially say, it's okay that I don't agree with what you have going on or what you think or what you have or you're doing. It's okay that you don't agree with me as well. And we can equally walk away and still do what we're doing in the community and figure it out from there. But
Right.
a lot of times, if it's like, if Mr. Butler don't agree with me, well, I gotta hate and be against Mr. Butler. Nah, that's not the world. That's not how things should truly be. So I
Mm-mm.
just encourage us to work more in partnerships, less silos, become mentors. We need way more mentors walking the halls of our school, way more
Mhm.
mentors walking our neighborhoods, starting basketball leagues, becoming coaches, um, kickball, softball, whatever that may look like. Because I truly feel like the more we put these kids in these different groups, whether it be talk groups, writing clubs, chess clubs, this builds up our social society again. COVID really hurt us, Mr. Butler. And we were
Mhm.
already getting into a technological world where people were just no longer being social anyway. But
Right.
COVID really put us behind on the social ladder, man. And a lot of our kids are suffering right now from that.
Mhm. Yeah, of course, we see that. I see it every day in the school
Oh, yeah.
system that COVID really did hurt the community. But one of the things you touched on is something that all the successful people I know, all the leaders I know, have touched on, and that is that they had a mentor. And I'm no exception to that as well. When I was coming out of high school, I wanted to get into radio. I wanted to be a radio DJ, and I actually did that for 11 years
Yeah.
before I went into TV. But the reason I became successful in that was because I had a mentor, and my
Mhm.
mentor was Donnie Simpson out of
Mhm.
WKYS in Washington and BET Soul.
Yeah.
I didn't know him, but I wrote him a letter. Back then, we didn't have we didn't have the technology, so you had to send a letter or make a
For
phone call.
sure. Right.
And I tried to call him several times, never got through. So I sent him a letter, said, listen, I want to be on the radio, but I want to get a head start on everybody else that's going to college. I want to get a jump start. What can I do? And I would send him tapes of myself. He would critique it. Some of them were brutal, but it helped me become the person that I needed to be in order to become successful in radio. And eventually, down the road, he hired me as one of
Yeah.
his radio personalities down the road. So you're talking about mentors. That's certainly something that we need, not only out in the community, but in schools. You know,
Yes, sir.
at Wycomico County Public Schools, we have a mentor program. We're asking people to become mentors because if you just come in, spend an hour a day with a student,
Yeah.
or hour a week with a student is what I mean. I
And I
got one.
try and I try, Mr. Butler, to encourage people to do group mentoring, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're gonna be in the school that day, see several kids. Don't
Yeah.
just go to the school to see one. See
Mm-hmm.
if the guidance counselors will allow you to see four in
Right.
that grade level. A couple. That way you're getting more bang for your buck, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I can only spend today here, but if I spend time with 15 kids today at one school, I'm making
Mm-hmm.
a true impact, right?
That's exactly
So
right.
yeah, that's one of the other things I try to encourage men and women to become mentors, but try to do group mentoring. You
Mm-hmm.
may not have a lot of time, but the time you do have can be valued and can be utilized.
You're right, and the great thing about mentoring is these kids look forward to you coming to
Most
school. They look
I got
forward to you coming to you.
I gotta say it, man. Me and Kevin Lindsay 2 years ago, I've been mentoring for a long time. He has as well. But 2 years ago, we were able to do group mentoring at East Salisbury. And it was a wonderful thing. Jeremy Sterling has a great program over there. He
Mm-hmm.
does great work over there. But we were able to do it there. And those kids, like you said, they knew what day you were supposed to come. They would have people call if you wasn't there when the time was, checking on you.
Right.
Um, but it was a great experience because, like you said, man, you build bonds and relationships that are lifelong lasting, right?
Yep.
Those kids may not listen to you now, but you'll plant those seeds that later on will show fruition and they'll have prosperous fruit because those kids will say, well, I remember what Mr. Lindsay said, or I remember what Mr. Butler said. And it didn't
Mm-hmm.
click at that moment, but it's clicking
Mm-hmm.
now. All right.
Yep.
So that's one of the greatest things about being a mentor, man. Like plant those seeds and later on you will see them grow.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The other thing that leaders and business owners and entrepreneurs and those who go on to super success, one of the other things they talk about, and I think you touched on it as well, is not only having mentors, but they also do a lot of personal development. What
Most
I
definitely.
mean by that is they read books, they listen to audio books, they go to trainings, because your learning doesn't stop in school, you know?
Yeah, Mr. Butler.
And I
Yeah,
think that's one of the things you even talk about with, your fellow coaches. You guys are
yeah,
sending each other stuff,
facts.
trying to increase your knowledge about the game.
Yeah, I think one of the things, greatest quotes I ever saw, just better in your best, right? I'm always trying to be better each day. Sick, tired, no matter what that is. Whatever I did yesterday, I'm trying to do better than that today
Right.
at whatever level that is, right? Like you said, if I'm sick today, I can only give you my best as a sick person, but
Hmm.
I'm going to give you my best. You're going to get the best I got out of it. And each day I try to better that. And one of those things, like you said, is sharpening your skill, making sure that you got a great toolbox full of tools, right? I go
Hmm.
somewhere and I only got a screwdriver and a Phillips head and a flathead, I'm in trouble, right? I might need a wrench or I might need a hammer. I
That's
might
true.
need some other things. So throughout our lives, we have to make sure that we become master carpenters in every tool that we can get our hands on. We have to put that in our toolbox because you never know when you're going to need it, right? So whether
Okay.
that be multiple streams of income, learning about that, whether that be seminars, whether that be training, whatever that looks like to enhance yourself, you have to do that. Because at the end of the day, if you're still dull, who's going to use you? Right? If you're
Yep.
not a sharp object, if you're not one of those tools that are still glimmering and shiny a little bit, who's going to really look for you? Who's going to really use you? Um,
Yep.
billion people in the world, billion people in the world. What
Yeah.
sets you apart?
That's
What
right.
sets you apart? What makes you unique? What makes someone have to come to you for your service? Well, again, if you keep being sharp, they're gonna come. There ain't something that you gotta worry about.
And the other thing you mentioned earlier was who you hang around with. Get around people who are going places. Get around people who are smarter than you. I always say if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
You're in the wrong
Uh,
room.
you're in the wrong room. Get around people who are smarter,
Yeah,
that can make you see other things. I mean,
yeah.
I often talk about the story. My mom and dad, I love them to death, and they could take me to a certain level. But if I want to get to a next level, I may need another mentor to get me to the next level. So
Yeah,
we certainly need those mentors. But before we leave, it's been
yeah,
a
yes, sir.
great conversation.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about some of your organizations
Okay,
that
yeah, for
that
sure.
that you've done. Extraordinary League of Gentlemen. You talk
Yeah,
about your Lions Club. Talk about that a
yeah,
little bit.
yeah. So Kids Rock was my original first organization. Kids Rock was kids, ROC, reaching our children. Me, Bubby Brown, Craig Winder started that in like 2009. Um, we saw the need in our community, a revolving door. Me and Bubby were working at DJS at the time. We felt like through basketball, we could teach life skills and life principles, right?
Right.
More than just basketball, running up and down the court. So we were able to do that successfully. This year, me and my uncle Kevin still run Kids Rock and Lady Rock. So we've been around for a very long time now, man, and it's been a joy over the years. Extraordinary League of Gentlemen was a birth child of me and Chucky Smiley. He was doing a few things in the community. We grew up on the same street, Purnell
Hmm.
Street. His grandmother owned the home. My grandmother owned the home. So we played together all our lives. He had came back from across seas and served some time as far as in the Iraq, Afghanistan things that were going on. And he had came home and wanted to do some things in the community. Um, I had already had a rec center and was doing some things. We sat down, had a conversation, and Extraordinary League of Gentlemen was born. And what we did with Extraordinary League of Gentlemen was we wanted to make sure that we enhanced the lives of people in our community, whatever that
Right.
looked like. Book bag drives to food giveaways to clothing giveaways, whatever needs that were in our community. But we wanted to also do it through partnership. So when we first started, we did a lot of partnership. It didn't matter whether you were faith-based, community-based, whomever that was. We wanted to partner and do great things in our community. And then lastly was the Salisbury Pride Lions Club. Pride stands for people realizing impossible doesn't exist. We started that in 2016. The International Lions Club is a great organization from pediatric cancer to eye to blindness to kidneys to all kinds of things, diabetes. They talk about service and help find resources for all kinds of things. They do a thing called Leader Dog where people who are going blind get animals.
Right.
They give away equipment as well. So it's a lot that goes on with the Lions Club internationally. And we felt like, why couldn't we bring some of those resources to our community? Yes, we know several Lions clubs in the Salisbury area and surrounding areas, but we felt like none were truly impacting our communities, right? When you go through our neighborhoods, we weren't getting things like free eye scan, right? Like that's something that Lions clubs do. And they can
Right.
do it at different events. So just having those conversations and being a resource. That's the biggest thing with all my organizations. How can we be an asset, a resource, and pass information to people who just may not know? There's tons of resources in our community, Mr. Butler. It's just bad marketing and promotion at times,
That's right.
right? Right. Yeah. So I truly believe that. But I've always, with all of our nonprofits and all of our organizations, I work for Maneri's Dream Alliance, which is another nonprofit. It's in 6 of 9 counties. That's my day job. And we do substance abuse prevention, where we're talking to kids about drugs. And, marijuana is a big thing right now because it's been legalized.
Mm-hmm.
So you got cookies and cakes and toy vapes and all of these different objects. Who are they marketing these things to? They're not marketing them to adults. We can be
Mm-mm.
honest and real here. So at the end of the day, we have to educate our kids where they make sound decisions. Again, will they probably still choose to go smoke? Yes, but they will be informed about what the cause and effect is if they choose to make that choice.
Right.
So that's just been our goal with our organizations, man, is just what holes can we fill or who can we partner with to be more of a vast resource to our community.
Right. Well, listen, we're about to wrap this up. And like I said, you've been a great guest today on
Yeah.
Their Story. Jermichael Mitchell has been our guest, just an amazing community advocate, does so much with the basketball community on the Eastern Shore and so much for students and young kids, trying to get them to not only become better athletes, but also mainly to become better people and to be able to reach whatever goals they set for themselves. So let's wrap this up by saying, or I'll ask you,
Yeah, yeah.
what kind of advice would you give to a young person today who is set a goal for themselves, no matter what it is, band, athletics, business, whatever? What advice would you give to young people looking to reach the top?
So I know we live in a multitasking world now. And again, I tell people all the time, have multiple options. But Mr. Butler, what I've done is I've gone all out with what I believe. I've put all my eggs in one basket. And that basket is a basket of success. Anything that I dream of, any vision that comes across my mind, my thoughts, anything that I put it on paper, I speak it into existence. And I am a firm believer that all go-getters are people who go out here and make it happen. No excuses. Ain't my mama's fault, my daddy's fault. It ain't no trauma or nobody that has passed. I have to buckle down. And if I truly want what I say I want, I have to focus on that and go make it happen. So many naysayers when I ran for mayor. And that's my I did that for the kids. I don't have no political background, no education in politics or anything of that nature. But I wanted kids to understand when you set your eyes on a prize, and that prize is all you think about. That prize is all you feel. And prize for me isn't being mayor. Prize for me is my community. I have
Right.
pride in Salisbury. I
Right.
love Salisbury. So I feel like the only way to enhance is in that position. My opinion, right? So I just want kids to truly know when you believe in yourself more than the air you breathe, right? When you believe in yourself more than the higher power that you know is there, that is when you'll be successful. Success only happens by making it happen. Ain't gonna fall in your lap. You ain't gonna click your fingers. And I get it. They have those internet sensations, and that's like a 1 in a billion chance.
Right.
And I applaud those people for using whatever skill set they have for that. But I believe in old-fashioned hard work. I believe in waking up every day, punching that time clock at 4 a.m. and not going to bed until I get the work done. So that's just one of those things where I tell kids and the youth out there, believe in yourself more than anything in this world and push forward no matter what people say, whether they say no or yes. You just keep believing and you keep pushing and everything will fall in line.
Couldn't have said it better. Jermichael Mitchell, thank you very much, sir. Really appreciate your time being on this podcast. And I know a lot of people are going to be inspired by this podcast. We're going to, share it all over the place. And I know there are going to be some young people watching this because you're their coach.
Yeah, for
You've
sure.
been their coach, and they're going to want to see what Coach Mitchell talked about. And I know you're going to
Yeah, yes, sir.
inspire a lot of people. So thank you very much, sir. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And what's next for Jermichael?
Man, so a couple more years, we definitely gonna be running for mayor again.
Okay.
Definitely not gonna stop, man. Again, I'm definitely gonna try my hand at that one more time.
Mm-hmm.
Season full at the Salisbury School. We had some changes happen over there, but I'm still gonna stick it out. I
Mm-hmm.
love adversity. I lost my stars. So a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people are like, man, what is he gonna do? No Tyler Ball, no Pierce Vasquez. Coach Mitchell's gonna show you that he can still coach. Coach Mitchell's gonna show you that he can still develop talent. Because
That's
this is what
right.
I love to do. These are
Yeah.
the times where you don't run away. These are the times
Yeah.
that you stand tall, man. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna keep doing what I do, Mr. Butler, man. So like I said, so guys like you can kick your feet up and you can pass that torch on so we can keep doing this great work that we do.
All right. All right, folks, there you have it. Jermichael Mitchell, just an amazing young man that we have in the Salisbury, Maryland community here on the Eastern Shore, all across the Eastern Shore, does so much for our youth and for our community. And we can't thank him enough. And I can't thank him enough for being on this podcast as well. So, folks, that's all for us. We will see you again next week with our next podcast. Have a great week.